Hi everyone. I'm August JaeKyun Hutchins. My middle name is JaeKyun, and it's my Korean name given to me at birth. I am also a junior and currently attending Montgomery Blair High School. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about myself because my parents said I should. A few of my favorite classes I'm taking right now are AP Psychology and American Sign Language, along with an elective called Political Psychology and Behavior. I'm taking my third year of ASL, and I'm also interning at a local urban farm in my neighborhood, and that has been an amazing experience. I'm learning more about composting, transplanting plants, and drip irrigation. I am also planning on volunteering as a junior counselor over the summer at an outdoor camp called Kaleva. I also play violin, which has been a huge part of my life, and I started when I was around 2 years old. I've gotten to play some beautiful places like Australia, Iceland, and Peru. I also like playing Minecraft with my friends. I was adopted when I was 6 months old from Seoul, South Korea. I went back to South Korea when I was 9 with the Asian Families Program. While I was there, I got to see my foster family and visit the hospital where I was delivered. While we were visiting the hospital, I actually met the doctor who delivered me. This wasn't intentional, but he looked at the hospital's records and was the only doctor to deliver during the time I was born. I also got to play my violin in Korea. I was invited by the Korean Adoptee Children's Choir to play at their concert. One of the pieces I performed was a meshed together duet with my father of the classical song Tambourine by Grey Tree and the famous Korean national folk song Aryong. I remember getting along well with the people from the children's choir, although there was a language barrier, but I remember playing lots of games of tag with them. Before my trip to Korea, I got to participate in filming of a documentary about Korean adoption. The film crew followed us around and even flew to Bermuda with my parents and I. It was fun, but tiring at times. There was a funny moment when the film crew had us walk from the cruise ship port multiple times to get the right shot. We couldn't keep walking through customs, so my family and I had to hide behind a wall several times and walk back and forth to the street. I also got to perform my violin at the Kennedy Center with the Korean Adoptee Children's Choir. The documentary was seen around by 3 million people, and it makes me happy that people learn more about adoption and maybe adopted a child of their own. I'm planning to go back to Korea in the future, and I'm also interested in finding my birth parents. When my family came to pick me up in Korea, they got me 18 different gifts. Each gift is given to me every Gotcha Day, which is November 17th. Some gifts I got were children's Korean books, toys, and a drum. I've been lucky enough to grow up in a diverse and accepting community. I've also been thankful for attending Korean Culture School and Camp Rice at such a young age to meet and make friends who share the same background as me. I have personally not experienced any sort of harsh forms of racism, but there have been a few incidents here and there. For example, when I travel, I get stares when I'm in airports because I'm the only Asian person around. Sometimes people ask, what kind of Asian are you? Where are you from? What are you? I remember feeling uncomfortable when I was younger, but now I feel like sharing how I feel when people ask. Just recently, someone asked me, what are you? It was surprising because it came out of the blue, but I tell them it's never appropriate to ask someone that question, especially in the way it was worded. Of course, it's okay to be curious about someone's ethnicity and cultural background, but to ask when you hardly know each other is isolating and dehumanizing because I am from the United States. I live in Maryland. I'm fine if my friends ask me what my ethnicity or cultural background is because we have a relationship. I am also curious too, but once you ask, you move on and don't ask again. In terms of being a teenager, especially when there's a spotlight on Black and Asian racism, you shouldn't feel alone. You have friends, teachers, siblings, and parents to talk to us in any way. That's what they are there for, to help and support us. After the George Floyd tragedy, quarantine was centered not only around COVID-19, but an insight to the systemic racism African Americans, people of color, and Indigenous people have been facing since the start of the country. With the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, I felt overwhelmed with all these news stories, articles, and after seeing them, I felt like I needed to help. My parents and I literally had conversations that lasted for hours with discussing the events. I educated them on proper language they should use and discussed why racism was still going on today. We also talked about me and how I should be careful if I were to be pulled over. I have darker hair and don't have a light complexion, so I should always be careful and follow directions in situations like that. I also checked in on some of my friends to see how they were feeling about the events. I start off by texting them and start talking with them. I start with the how are you, how's school going, then I discuss how I feel. For example, I say all these stories I see on Instagram are devastating and I really want to do things to help. Then I segue in and ask, how are you feeling? This really helps facilitate a conversation between the two of us, and it allows us to share how we both feel based on what's going on in the country. I also participated in an event called Bakers Against Racism and made lemon bars, raising more than $500 and donated all 100% of the proceeds to help support people of color. I read books to educate myself on how racism emerged and was woven into the country, from schools, government, and the incarceration system. I highly recommend this book called Stamped, a book on racism, anti-racism in you by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. This is geared specifically toward teenagers and is a digestible read on the history of racism. I also shared articles, books to read, and ways to donate to social media. I even checked with my parents if some things I wrote were all right to post. Sometimes we spent 20 minutes discussing how things should be specifically worded, but the one important and key thing is to fact check. We don't want to be spreading any misinformation, so check your sources, see how reputable accounts are, and search if the facts you're reading corroborate with other articles. After hearing news about hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders started, I was brought into a different perspective because these were centered around me and others who look like me. I'm still processing this and I'm feeling uncomfortable, nervous, and scared because the country we live in still faces acts of racism to all people of color. This is reality, but we are the new generation. We can step up, learn from our past mistakes, and try our best to make a better future. If you experience or see any conflicts, speak out. Try your best to prevent any incidents. Just don't be a bystander. I am also working on this myself. I'm usually nervous and overthink situations. What if this happens? What if that happens? Just tell yourself, if you were in that person's situation, would you want people to help you? You don't have to step in and get into the person's face, but walk up and stand with the vulnerable person. Offer your assistance. Ask if you need to call someone. Call them an Uber, or stand with them and walk away. You should make it part of your job to make the person feel safe. Or you can also get a trusted adult and let them know what's going on. And it's also very important not to get physical. If you receive any racist comments, emails, or texts, it is important for you to screenshot them and make sure you have a receipt. The reason is you should need that and you should have a record of the incident down the road. You should not respond to racism in a negative way, but instead take the high road. A response you can make is that racist comments are a criminal offense based on the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998. I am proud to be an Asian American. I have a unique background and am glad to share two cultures, my parents' culture and my birth culture. I am not ashamed to be who I am because this is who I am and I am proud to be me, and you should be too. Thank you.